All right. Well, good morning and welcome to the fifth annual Family Engagement Leadership Summit. We are glad that you're joining our team at The Ohio State University, all of our participants here today from across the country and even around the world, and all of our wonderful presenters. We have designed this day for leaders for family engagement in education. My name is Dr. Barbara Boone, and I'm here today with the Family Engagement Team at the Center on Education and Training for Employment at Ohio State. We are Ohio's statewide Family Engagement Center. Our team develops workshops, tools, and resources for families to support the education of their children at all grade levels. We also provide professional learning tools, technical assistance for educators, and we conduct research. But more importantly, we bring research to action so it's useful to you at home, in the classroom, in your community, whatever your role is. We hope that after today, you'll join our ongoing network for leaders, you'll participate in one of our seminars, you'll subscribe to one of our newsletters, and share our resources with the parents and educators in your lives. Now, before I go any further, I want to recognize our team here at Ohio State who have worked so hard to make this summit a great learning experience for all of us. Please join me in acknowledging their efforts in making this summit possible by sharing your appreciation in the chat or using the Zoom reaction buttons now or later today. And in particular, I just want to point out and especially thank Whitney Gehrman for her excellent leadership and really coordinating all of us. Throughout the day, you can identify our team by the letters OSU after our names. Now, our summit theme this year is Family Engagement by Design. And it's not just a catchy saying that we hoped would bring you here today. Instead, at the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center, we know design is critical to create the educational opportunities our children need. And those opportunities arise out of strong partnerships between families, educators, and communities. Partnerships and trust between schools and families do not happen by chance. They're built by design. I know that everyone in this room has been to a beautiful wedding celebration, or you've driven an amazing car, or you've worn clothing that fit just right. All of those experiences were the result of intentional design with you in mind. Good designs can be useful, understood, and enjoyed by everyone. When it comes to schools partnering with families, we can't expect to get the results we want for our children today by using activities and strategies that worked for schools and families 5, 10, or even 20 years ago. Our designs for building strong partnerships with families of all students must be designed so that all families have options that fit their family in this current time. The time for us to be designers of partnerships is now. In our recent survey of Ohio district leaders, over half of the leaders reported they did not have a plan for supporting family engagement in their district. And then, not surprisingly, 45% of district leaders, nearly half, reported they believe their district is currently partnering with less than half of their students' families. So, given the documented fact that well-designed family engagement leads to improved student academic outcomes, social and emotional outcomes, improved health and wellness, and improved future job prospects, we have to get to work. Today, we raise up the importance of planning and designing for partnerships with all families. Our team designed today with you in mind because you are designers, and we've created a day for you to learn how to design to reach all families and to give you lots of ideas for incorporating into your designs. We need to design for building the hopes of all of our children. We need to design so that all have a strong sense of belonging in our schools. We need to design for not only communicating to all families well, but to listen even better. We need to design for those families and students who are not yet knocking on our door, and we need to design for families that no one in the history of our school has yet designed for. We have many excellent sessions for you to choose from today with researchers from the United States and Hong Kong, educators and family members. Our team at OSU will be presenting many sessions today on a variety of topics that will apply to your schools and families. And one session this afternoon will be led by a special guest, Dr. Joyce Epstein, a professor and researcher at Johns Hopkins University. We've learned from Dr. Epstein's national network of partnership schools and have established the Ohio network of partnership schools. Currently, there are 26 Ohio districts and their schools in this network who have plans and designs for building partnerships with all families in their local school communities. We have leaders from several of those schools sharing their designs in our in different sessions today. And at lunch, we'll have a panel of district leaders who will share about their experiences leading family and community engagement. So with that, I want to welcome all of you. You are designers. I hope you'll add that title to your resume, put it in your email signature. Let others know you are a designer of partnerships. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Ana Paula Correa, who is our director for the Center on Education and Training for Employment, and who is an avid supporter for family engagement and our team. Dr. Correa is a professor of learning technologies in the Department of Educational Studies at The Ohio State University. She leads the Learning Experience Design Research Group. She is dedicated to helping her students and all of us provide excellent online collaborative learning. Dr. Correa, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Boone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ohio Family Engagement Leadership Summit. I'm so excited to be here. As Dr. Boone mentioned, my name is Ana Paula Correa, and I am the director of the Center on Education and Training for Employment. We go by CET, where the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Center is housed. Both centers are part of the Ohio State University here in Columbus, Ohio. CET is a research center in the College of Education and Human Ecology, and the center was founded in 1963. It has existed for more than 60 years, and it is important to note that the Family Engagement Program has been part of the last 11 years in our center's 60-plus year history. So we can clap now for that major accomplishment. 11 years, more than a decade for sure. As a translation research center, CET is committed to bring research into practice. In the context of family engagement, this means applying what we learn from research to improve the lives of all students, their families, and educators, while working with individual families, educators, and state, national, and international partners. So I want to take this moment to welcome all the family engagement leaders attending this Zoom event in the United States and abroad. I'm following the shot, and hey, a large representation from everywhere, so everyone is welcome, and I want to big shout out to everyone who's joining us now. I also want to congratulate Dr. Boone and her team for their work in family engagement, which is guided by the people most impacted, the families and the students, in an effort to create an authentic, respected, trustworthy partnership between home and school. That's why we are all here today. I'm confident that you're going to have a highly productive and enjoyable day with a lineup of fantastic speakers, having Dr. Katie Novak kicking us off as the keynote speaker. Shout out for her as well. This summit is an opportunity for you to network. Yes, we can network via Zoom. You all know that by now, after all these years, and exchange valuable insights. I truly wish you that you enjoy this day and take advantage of it to leverage your knowledge and skills. So thank you, everyone. My remarks are always very short, but I'm really enthusiastic and excited. And I'm sending the mic back to Dr. Boone.
Thank you. Thank you. Please join me in thanking Dr. Correa. We are so excited to have her as our leader here at the center. And now I would like to introduce Stephen Dakin, who's the director of the Department of Education and Workforce for Ohio. In his 40 years in education, He has been a classroom educator, a school leader, and a higher education administrator. And for many years, he was the superintendent of the schools in my community, Reynoldsburg, Ohio. And as a parent in that community, I can attest that he was a remarkable leader. He knew our children's names. He welcomed feedback from families and students and community members. His door was always open. He led many beneficial innovations in our school system and expanded partnerships with businesses and organizations. He was and continues to be a leading innovator and a designer of new approaches to education for Ohio schools that will serve children and families better. I know that Director Dakin understands the challenges and the opportunities our young people and their parents and guardians face in effectively navigating the educational system and the workforce systems. We are delighted that he's taken time from his important work to welcome all of you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Boone, for that very generous introduction. Listen, I'll send you a little Venmo for that introduction later. But it's just great to be here, and I want to give a shout out to my team at the agency who works with Dr. Boone and her team on all things family engagement. Our team is really committed to making sure that kids get the kind of supports necessary for them to be successful, and we're very proud of that work. I also just want to, when I think about gratitude, I was raised up in Northwest Ohio. I had two loving parents, but they were very clear about the fact that every day we should wake up and think about what we're grateful for. And my team knows that at the agency, I start every meeting with gratitude. And so today, my special gratitude is for the hard work that's being done, Barbara, with you, your team, the work at OSU over many years, 11 years, over a decade now. And just grateful for folks who are committed to doing the right thing for families and kids in our state. I will say this, that there's a resonating theme here. I love the framework of family engagement by design, because that calls out the notion of purpose and intentional, and creating structures by which we engage families in the educational opportunities for their kids. And I also love the notion that I think the word's already been used a couple times. I'm going to go ahead and echo it, and that's this idea of partnership first. None of us can do this by ourselves. We have to lock arms. We have to figure out how to collaborate with each other on behalf of children. If you think, I once heard a superintendent early in my career talk about the role of the superintendent in a community. And he said that the superintendent in any given community is the chief advocate for children. And that always kind of just resonated with me. It just kind of stayed with me as a central value system that I hold true. And so at the department, we have reimagined our focus in terms of who is our primary customer. Our primary customer are families and students. Now, that's a change, because for years gone by, I think the agency had thought about the primary customer being schools and education providers. And indeed, they are a customer. We have to ensure that we have high quality schools so that every child has the opportunity to have a great teacher and a great principal. So that obviously continues to be a focus of ours. But frankly, getting to understand what the needs of families are, what the needs of our students are, and finding partners to collaborate with, to engage in that way, to bring those assets that are existing in every community, and bring those assets and leverage those assets on behalf of families is just critical for all kinds of reasons. As you know, there is also, I have a colleague now in the Department of Children and Youth. This is a new agency advocated by Governor DeWine. The legislature agreed, and it's now in place. And I will say that Director Winnie is doing a fantastic job at figuring out how to do exactly what we're talking about, leveraging the assets in the community, getting information in the hands of parents so they know where to turn to, how to get what they need, when they need to get it at the right time. And Kara and I are working together on figuring out that whole 0 to 21 spectrum of age spectrum of how do we provide these supports all along the way. And it's partnerships like this with the Family Engagement Center that allows us to do these kinds of things. So again, a note of gratitude for all that. Obviously, Ohio's priority is pretty clear. The governor laid it out in the State of the State speech. And I have to say something about Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Houston. The DeWine-Houston administration has been laser focused on 4 or 5 major priorities that now are embedded into the work of the Department of Education and Workforce. The first, obviously, is literacy. And Barbara, you and I met earlier this year. You gave me a lot of wonderful information. I have a whole set of handouts here on how to engage families in helping them teach their children how to read, for example, and how they can provide supports for enhancing literacy in the home. I also know the First Lady, Fran DeWine, has established the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which a shout out to her work. Right now, I think we're at 460-some thousand kids who are receiving a book in the mail every month, a free book in the mail every month from 0 to 5. My own granddaughter and grandson are getting a book. My favorite book with Caroline, who is my granddaughter, is Ice Cream Face. And so we read Ice Cream Face, and I turned it into not only do we read the book, but then we go get ice cream after we read the book. And her mother accused me the other day, said, well, listen, Dad, vegetables. You ever heard of vegetables? I'm like, that's your deal. that's your responsibility as the parent to make sure she eats her vegetables. I'm going to give her ice cream. So we read Ice Cream Face. But I would encourage you, if you haven't connected with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library in Ohio, to do so and get that information in the hands of parents, because it's really, really important to start reading at an early age and enhance vocabulary at an early age. We know all that matters. The governor put a stake in the ground around literacy when he issued an executive order requiring districts to use the science of reading as the primary literacy curriculum. Fast forward, the legislature agreed, and it's now the law in Ohio that every school district must use the science of reading as their approach to teaching literacy in their schools. And we've provided $171 million of support in the last biennium budget to ensure that happens, and which includes things like high quality instructional core materials, high quality instructional intervention materials, includes high quality professional development for every role that a person plays in the organization, in a school organization. So we have 7 different pathways depending on the role that you have in your respective school. And then, of course, we have literacy coaches, 33 literacy coaches that will expand to 83 this year in our most at-risk and neediest schools. So that was a huge investment made by the legislature and the administration. It's paying dividends. We're really, really happy with what we're seeing on the implementation front with literacy, but we need to do more. And so my call to action here is to continue to engage this organization and engage others in our state. Imagine a state that leveraged their collective state assets on one priority, educational priority, literacy. Imagine if we led the country in literacy. Imagine the economic prosperity for kids and families who could read at or above grade level as they matriculated through the K-12 system. I mean, that's the kind of vision that we are advocating in our state around literacy. Of course, that's not the only priority we have. We have a number of other priorities. Actually, we have 4 priorities. Workforce is another priority for us, as is student wellness and health, mental health and physical wellness, and accelerating the learning of all kids, not just some kids, but all kids. And I want to just talk a moment about again, going back and referencing the governor's State of the State speech. This speech was historic in a lot of ways. There was a running joke prior to his speech that how many times would the word Intel be used in his speech? Intel is a big deal in Ohio, obviously, in terms of economic development and bringing good jobs to Ohio. But he didn't use the word Intel one time, not one time, zero. The whole speech was about children and what we can do as adults to embrace what I call the moral imperative of adults to take care of our children. And his whole speech was about that. And this is the same governor who advocated for student wellness funds and success funds to be part of the biennium budget. And those funds have been available in each of his budgets. In the last budget, it was actually put into the funding formula in Ohio. And so it's there. So again, I don't want to take a lot of time here, but I just want to kind of shout out. There's a couple other things I want to mention real quick. We have a vision strike force. The governor believes that every child who needs glasses should have glasses, and he's committed to making sure that happens in this state. The second thing is school-based health clinics. Again, this is all about wellness and leveraging community assets. I know we did that in Reynoldsburg. We had a partnership with Mount Carmel hospital systems, and we had a health clinic in one of our high school settings. And then the whole issue with cell phones. The legislature has required districts to adopt a policy to restrict the use of cell phones in the schools. We have a model policy that suggests that they should just go ahead and ban them because we know the mental health challenges facing our young people with unfettered access to social media sites and so on. So with that, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to thank you again for the opportunity to come speak. I wish you a great day. I know you've got a great agenda that's going to provide a lot of information and resources to people who are in attendance today. And thank everybody who is in attendance today for your commitment to children.
Well, thank you. Please, everyone, thank you, Director Dakin, for that encouragement and the vision and the just letting us see the commitment from so many places in leadership in Ohio for our kids and our families and education. So thank you for that. And there's so much appreciation. I love all the hands and hearts in our Zoom meeting here. So thank you, everyone, for that. And thank you for your time this morning and spending it with us.
Thank you.
So now I would really, I'm so excited to introduce our keynote speaker, and I want to get there quickly. And I just want to let you know, I first read Katie Novak's work on universal design in education in 2014, and I had the chance then to participate in her learning sessions, and I always walked away with new ideas. I felt challenged. I felt motivated. Katie Novak is a designer for learning and a designer for change, helping educators change to more effective practices for teaching and leadership. And she's an author, a graduate instructor at the University of Pennsylvania, a former assistant superintendent of schools in Massachusetts. She has 20 years of experience in teaching and administration and an earned doctorate in curriculum and teaching. Oh my gosh. And 14 published books. But here's the thing. Here's her claim to fame. She's a mom, and she has supported her own kids through their educational journeys. And it's a wonderful opportunity to have her here joining us today to lead us in considering considering universally designing for partnering with all families. So welcome, Dr. Novak.
Thank you so much, everyone. I am so happy to be here. And what I will say is that I am still supporting my students going through school. I have the really distinct pleasure this year to have kids at every level of schooling. I have a son in elementary school, I have twins in middle school, and my oldest son is in high school. So I am deep in it. So today we're going to be talking about how to boost and lift up family and community engagement so that we can better serve all of our learners and really ignite the potential that all of them have. Because one of the things I always say is all students will be successful when we get the conditions right. All teachers will be successful when we get the conditions right. And all families will be successful when we can get the conditions right, when we have the correct communication and support, and when we honor their lived experiences. So in this short keynote, we're going to talk about how to do that. But when we talk about family and community engagement, I just want to lift up, we are serving people's babies. These are my babies. On the left-hand side, this is Torin. He is in 10th grade. My twins are in the middle. That's Aylin and Brecken, and they're in 8th grade. And then that's my little man, Bowden, who is in 4th grade. And they only get a single year in each of these grades. And anyone who is serving them almost becomes a part of my family for this year. You know, you're spending 180 days with this kid, right? If you're an educator, and there's something so incredibly beautiful about the opportunity to serve not only students, but their families. Because the more that I feel connected to the school, the more that I feel connected to the community, the better off everyone is going to do. So let's first talk about our goals for this keynote, and then we're going to dive right in. First, I want to talk about how some families face barriers by design that prevent them from being really involved in their students' schooling, in their students' education. And so we want to make sure that if our goal is that all families are included, that we recognize the barriers that are currently excluding participation, excluding engagement and involvement. I also want to provide you with some concrete strategies that you can bring back to your role, whatever that is, to start to increase the outcomes of family and community engagement. And in order to do that, we have to be really culturally responsive and understand the authentic lived experiences of all the very beautiful different families we serve and how we can better meet their needs. So the first lesson, we're going to have 3 lessons. The first lesson is all about firm goals and flexible means. It's one of my favorite things to say. And this is aligned to the goal of really understanding the barriers that are present when we do not provide flexible means. Now, I love analogies, and so I'm going to start with one. I want you to think about what conditions would you need to enjoy camping? Now, some of you are excited already because you're saying, oh, I love camping. I would camp in the freezing cold winter. I would sleep in a hammock in a tree. Now, for me, I'm not necessarily that type of camper. And so I have 3 things that I really need to be there if I'm camping. The first is a mattress. Any mattress is fine, a blow-up mattress, but I need a mattress. I am just too old to sleep on the ground. Number 2, I need some sort of plumbing. I would like a flush. I would like a shower. That'd be great. And I'm going to need the temperature to be above 45 degrees, right? And so right near, I can see in the chat, Lisa has been camping for 24 years with the Boy Scouts. Lisa would sleep in a tree. I can feel that. Okay, Victor's with me. We need great weather. But I want you to take 1 minute and think about the fact that every one of us could enjoy a camping trip if the conditions were right. So 1 minute, you can see your options here. Let's enjoy a little John Denver for 1 minute, and I would love for you to just reflect on this prompt. Okay. I love your answers because if I said, hey, we're going camping, and I was really responsive to your experiences and your need, you're all like, yeah, sure, I'll go camping if I have a hotel to sleep in. Okay, Linda, that's fresh. You're being a fresh city there. And I love it. Now, my family is a camping family. And when we were little, we used to stay in tents all the time. And my parents have this idea that we're still going to do this. There's a lot of barriers to that for us. So they've chosen a campground that literally has rural tent hookups. They have an RV so they can park their RV, but then there's yurts, and then there's kind of rustic cabins, and then there's legit glamping cabins. It is exactly like you are in a hotel. So me and Linda are going to love this trip. But what you're realizing here is that every single one of us can and will camp if we get the conditions right. But it starts with someone saying, okay, what do you need? What works for you? And then how do we work together to design that? Now, I want to start with a camping analogy because as the superintendent of camping, I am going to make the decisions. And so certainly in the chat, we know there's a lot of different ways that you can camp, but I have decided that what works best for me based on my life experience is that when we break down into like the substandards, we're going to eat something, we're going to drink something, and then we're going to do a really great activity. And so in order for us to do that, despite the fact that I recognize that you have different needs, we're all going to eat hot dogs. Because what says camping better than hot dogs? We're all going to have hot dogs and it's going to be magical. And then we're all going to drink beers because everyone knows that camping and beers go together. And then the activity is we are going to go swimming in a lake. Like the type of swimming where all the weeds like kind of come up like Stranger Things and they like grab your ankles and you're not sure what it is. Okay, so how many of you are in for this trip? Hot dogs, some beers and some swimming in a lake. Okay, Hadley is in, right? Me and Hadley in our little glamping cabin, we are going to live it up with the hot dogs and the buds and the swimming, right? And so, okay, oh gosh. So we have like a 2 out of 3. We have a not really. Oh gosh, who's out? Who's out? I'm getting nervous here. Okay. Oh my gosh. We have Wafa is out. We have Linda is out. This is not good. Dawn's not coming. So here's the thing, is all of you are capable of joining in a really inclusive camping trip. It's just that this design excludes you. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of this, right? Because certainly we can serve hot dogs and we can serve, any kind of drink that people want. This can't be the only thing. And so when we talk about family and community engagement, we have to think about if the goal is really that we want students to have like connections between their lives at home and their lives at school, what are the barriers that are preventing? And a lot of the time it comes down to there's just not enough choice. There's just not enough flexibility. There's not enough responsiveness to what people actually need. Now, some of you, as I'm looking at the chat, simply can't access the options that I have provided. You have a plant-based diet, potentially, or you just do not like hot dogs. Some of you do not drink alcohol. Some of you may, but I saw a note saying, can you get me some wine? And then some people don't know how to swim, or maybe swim, but only swim in pools, or just don't love the idea of swimming anywhere where you can't really see to the bottom and what's under you. And so when we don't provide choice, some people face barriers to access. And then some people are just like so uncomfortable that it's like, yeah, I could, but I won't. So there are some of you here, and if you're willing to admit it, that'd be amazing. But some of you could eat a hot dog, meaning that you do not have a plant-based diet. There's no sort of like dietary sensitivity. Some of you may have a cocktail and you could drink a beer, but you won't. And some of you know how to swim, right? And so how many of you might say, I could, but I will not? Because that doesn't sound like it's a good use of my time. Okay, Penny. Penny is like, yeah, I could totally do it, but I don't want to. Right? Yes, Penny. Yes. Penny puts Penny first, and that's what I love. And a lot of the times we see like families, some of them, if we have an event, aren't able to show up, right? They can't show up because they have other things that create barriers, right? And sometimes they're like, there's nothing for me there. And you know what? I choose me. And we cannot blame families for doing that. They're prioritizing other things. And so we exclude a lot of people by design. Now we say, okay, great. So there's choices, and that's fine, right? But choices doesn't necessarily mean that something is universally designed or designed for everybody, because universal design is really recognizing what is the barrier. And so I love the example of the beer, because we know that there are so many people who cannot or will not drink beer, because some people are non-drinkers for lots of different reasons. Obviously anyone ever under 21 is not able to legally have a drink, right? And if we say we're only going to provide beer, it excludes everybody. Now listen to this, right? There's many of you who are like, I will not drink beer, or I cannot drink beer. But what if I say, but do you want it in a can? Or a bottle, or a frosty glass? You're like, what are you talking about? That doesn't help at all. And we're doing a lot of that where we're really trying to provide more options, but we're not actually naming and eliminating the barrier. And so you could hand out, a hard copy of an invitation to back to school night, and you could send it out, 3 different times, and you could put like a big banner in front of the school and say, look, there's lots of ways to learn about back to school night, but printed text in English is going to exclude a lot of people. The fact that back to school night is on an evening where many people work, where many people don't have transportation. My own children had back to school night last night, and we were told that children were not allowed to come. So now we have to find transportation, figure out dinner, figure out how our kids are getting to activities, pay for childcare, right? And even if you say, but you can go to back to school night Monday night or Tuesday night or Wednesday night, we're offering 3 nights this year. The barrier needs to be addressed. And so when we think about this work, we say, okay, so if we want to universally design something, we have to provide options and choices. Just like on the camping trip, I say, do you want to stay in a tent or do you want to glamp with me? Would you like to have a hot dog, or do you want to bring your own veggies, or, we can potluck it in another way? Like, what do you need to meet that goal? Now, we're going to talk a lot about the importance of choice, but one really interesting thing, it's called the paradox of choice. And too many choices can actually be a barrier. And so sometimes we may say, let's send out something to parents. We're going to make sure it's printed and electronic. We're going to make sure that it's on email and social media. And there's going to be lots of options and choices for people to learn about how they can be involved in school. And I was once working with a PTA in my child's school that handed me basically what looked like a novel, or like a tome of all the ways that I could be involved if I wanted to be. Like, I could donate to a bake sale. I could be a volunteer in the library. There were so many things that I kind of mentally shut down. So even though it may have been accessible, the cognitive load can only handle so much. And so when we're providing options and choices, there's a lot of really good research that says that we want to make sure that we're thinking about the goal and we're providing only between 2 and 4 options, with one of those options being, what's the way that you want to do this? So think about the analogy of, we're going to have a cookout at the campground, and I give you a list of 75 different items that I could put on the grill. You're not even going to look at all of the items. You're not going to consider all of the items, and you're probably not going to make a responsible decision because you haven't actually looked at all of them. And so there's a TED Talk called The Paradox of Choice, and the presenter, his name is Barry Schwartz, and he says that we have so many choices that we actually can't make good choices, and it creates this analysis paralysis. And so the example he uses is, if I invited you over to my house for dinner and I pre-dressed a salad, like a Caesar salad, a chicken Caesar salad that has Caesar dressing, which has eggs and, there's oil, there's chicken in it, there's cheese. So I'm excluding a lot of people, dietarily, culturally, people who just don't like that type of food. And so I wouldn't pre-dress it. I would instead say, hey, I'm having salad tonight. I'll put everything on the side. I'm going to do a Caesar dressing, and I'm going to have oil and vinegar. Feel free to bring your own dressing as well. I would love that. I'd love to have another option, right? Those are 3 options. My oil and vinegar, my ranch. If you'd like to bring something else, that'd be amazing. Or if you let me know something else that you need, that'd be great. And then he says, now go into your grocery store and actually look at the salad dressing aisle and tell me what the best dressing is. You can't, right? Keith is like in the chip aisle. I can't. So what does Keith probably do? Keith, you probably get the same type of chips every time, right? Just because you're like, I can't even consider the other options. That's what happens. We get kind of stuck and we get frozen because we don't have the cognitive load to really consider doing it in other ways. So that is going to be a really important lens. So basically what I say to teachers is, we're basically playing a game of would you rather. We have to read this poem. Would you rather read it in hard copy? Would you rather access it digitally, which would allow for a read aloud, which would allow for, a translation for the first read in the heritage language before going into a second read in English? Would you rather read it by yourself, or would you rather read it with a partner? Okay, so take a moment and think about what is the best thing for you right now. And if you have another alternative for reading this poem, I would love to hear it from you. So we're going to do that with parents as well. We're going to do that with our communities. We're going to say, would you rather do it this way, or would you rather do it that way? Or do you have a better idea? Because we really want to listen. And so when we think about that work, UDL is all about firm goals and flexible means. So we want to be really clear about what our goals are, and then think about, if we only did this in one way, like the camping analogy, who would be excluded by design? And we can predict that. We can predict that there are going to be some families who will not be able to get to a back to school night because they're working that evening. We can predict that there are some families that will not come to back to school night because it's only presented in English. And we know we have a lot of other families who do not speak English, and therefore there's going to feel like, well, there's nothing there for me. Like, why am I going to go? Yes, maybe I have the night off, but like, what am I going to get out of that? And so why is this understanding of firm goals, flexible means so important when we think about family and community engagement? I'm going to stop my share just for 1 second because I want to see if I can share my sound a little bit better, because the last time you couldn't hear my very punny music selection. Okay, so here we go. Share sound. Let's try this. Okay. I mean, there is no greater jam for family and community engagement. I mean, there's a lot of other good ones probably. And if you have other good ones, throw them in the chat right now, because all of us can then Spotify the ultimate family and community engagement playlist. There was a question in the chat. I just want to highlight it. Universal design for learning is UDL, which in the most simplistic of terms is, how do we universally design learning? How do we design something so everyone can access it, is basically what it comes down to. So when something is universally designed, it's designed for everyone. And what we know is that some of the things that we do to try to connect with families, it's not designed for all families yet. But it can be if we're really open to connecting with families, listening to families, just like I did in the camping trip, and, working with cultural brokers and working with community members and saying our goal is to connect with all families. Clearly, the options we're providing aren't working for everyone yet. What do you feel like you need, or what do you feel like families need in order to be able to meet this goal? Just like I asked you, what do you need in order to camp? And some of you are like, I'm going to need a mattress. And so we have to work together and figure out what those things are and how we can bring them together. So when we think about the second lesson, so the first lesson was understanding that there are barriers present that exclude some people based on access, others just based on engagement, and that we can address that through firm goals and flexible means. Now, the next is, so how do we boost family engagement? Because we know that some families are engaged already because the options we're providing work. And there are some families who we're not connecting with yet. And it's because there are barriers. So when we think about, again, there's nothing wrong with the hot dog. You can keep serving the hot dog, but that cannot be the only thing that you serve, because there's going to be some families who are not included. Now, I was a classroom teacher for 13 years before I went into administration. I was a public school administrator for almost another decade. And this, to me, was a very, very big light bulb moment, because I think a lot of the times when we're talking about family and community engagement, we're not thinking about the full spectrum of what that means, that a lot of people just want families to be involved with school. So involvement with school is showing up to parent-teacher night, showing up to back-to-school night, filling out forms, things like that. It's kind of a low bar for access. When we talk about we want families to be involved, it's not necessarily the lens of saying we want families really involved with schooling, right? How do we really help our families to better serve their own kids in a culturally responsive way at home, right? It's not just about, make sure your kids get here on time, come to the activities, come to the family night, comes to literacy night, but saying how do we really empower and lift up families and provide them with what they need so they feel like they can support their children with schooling? they really understand the content that we're teaching. We make that really accessible, not only to students, but families. The idea of really helping them navigate, how do we support our kids at home? If we're saying we need to build learner agency, what might that look like at home? The other day, one of my best friends, Paul, called me and he's like, I'm really trying to help McKinley, who is in 4th grade, with her math homework. Do you know if there's any sites that parents can go to? Because I don't want to give her the answers. And I honestly don't know how to help. And so he might be involved in school, but he doesn't really know how to appropriately be involved in schooling. Now, engagement in learning is how do we co-serve our students? How do we tap into the cultural capital in our community through project-based learning, through really authentic, community-based projects? How do we make sure that our entire community is engaged with teaching and learning? And that's very far down the spectrum. And so remember our camping analogy where we talked about hot dogs and beer and swimming, right? We're going to now use this for a back to school night analogy because it is the classic traditional camping trip of the fall, right? Kids go back to school, parents get a notice, come in to this welcome parent night, which in the vast majority of cases is going to be done in English. It is going to be in the evening. It will require transportation. And we have to think about, is there value to families to attend? Are we getting anything that is really, really helping us to better understand schooling? Or is this just becoming, we do this every year, and so we do this every year, right? And so we know that some families will and can attend, and we say, okay, those are the parents who are involved, without really thinking about what are the barriers. And so I want to share with you, when I was a teacher, we had a back to school night and we really tried to pay attention to which of the families did we meet, which families attended and which families did not. And then we said, well, clearly the families who did not attend faced some significant barriers to learning. Now, I was a 7th grade teacher, so there were 4 core teachers that we all served the same kids. So we had about 120 kids and there were 4 of us. And so we divided and conquered, essentially, who were all the families that did not attend. And let's, each take a handful of them and do whatever it takes to connect with them. So it might be trying email. It might be trying the phone. The best way to get in touch with parents is just to ask a student, hey, could you just call whoever is your person? Because I just want to say hi. Right? During lunch, before school, after school, people always somehow answer the call from their kids, right? And so we would reach out and we'd say, we just want to meet you. We want to meet you and we want you to meet us. And, we're all raising these babies together. And so what will work best for you? Now, if we knew that it was a parent who spoke a language other than English, we knew that we had translation opportunities in the district, and we always took advantage of that. If you reach out to your English language learner specialists or your bilingual specialists, Title III does provide translation and interpretation services, right, in the federal grant. And so there's always going to be someone who can be kind of a cultural and language broker for you. But we reached out to these families and we decided clearly that evening didn't work. And maybe no evenings work, we don't know. But let's provide some options. And so we decided on our own that we would, choose one day a month. And, before school, we were already there, right? Teachers are notoriously never leaving buildings, right? And so we were already there in the morning. And then we're like, you know what? We'll just switch a prep and our lunch. So we're available at lunch. And then we'll also do it after school and we'll do it in the evening. And we switched. So each of us only had to take 2 days a year. And we would just say, when's the best time for you to come in? We'd love to meet you. Want to have coffee in the morning? I can make sure there's a translator there. Would it be better if we met somewhere else? Right? We connected to every single one of the 120 families because we recognized the barriers, and we'd say, oh, we missed you last night. And they'd say, oh, I know, but I didn't have childcare. It's oh gosh, no worries. We're going to be there in the morning. We're happy to watch the little kids in one room just so you can get a chance to meet the teachers. And we made it our goal that every single family, regardless of variability, regardless of diversity, regardless of differences, would connect with. And so it was about us providing other options. However, we thought we nailed it. We're we are so good at this. We are so good at parents involving in school that we never really pushed it to the other end of the spectrum. And so we were wow, we're really, really good at getting parents to listen to how awesome we are. But we actually never really asked them what they needed, right? We did all this work. We like eliminated all these barriers. The parents show up and we're like, let us tell you how awesome we are. And let me tell you how awesome your kid is. But we were never like, is there anything that we could be doing differently? Like what does your child need at home to be really successful? Like it was all like, we're going to tell you how your kid is doing. And it didn't feel like we were really open to learning from families. It was like, you shall learn from us. We are the greatest team in the world. And you know what? We were a pretty awesome team, but we were a much better team when we moved to being much more open to saying, we're not in charge here, right? If we're co-serving, if we're co-raising, if we're bringing up this next generation together, like what does that mean? And so we literally started saying to parents, the very last year I was in the classroom, we reached out to the Title III coordinator and we're like, how do we do this differently? And again, we would reach out to back to school night and would say, we know this works for some of you. We would love to see you, but it's going to be an opportunity, really like a focus group. We're going to pull like a community circle. And I'm going to share a little bit about, me and the team and how much I love your kids, but also how I'm a learner and that my classroom will never, ever, ever look the same from class to class, from year to year, because I serve the kids who are in front of me and they have different needs. And so I want to know, what barriers do you feel like your kids are facing? What would be great for, me to provide options? Again, make sure those cultural brokers are there. And so we would reach out and say, you can come to open house night. We also do, 4 times a year. We can be there in the morning, in the afternoon, and the night. If you are facing barriers for transportation in general, please let us know. One of us will reach out and we're happy to do a home visit. And there were very few families that needed a home visit, and some of them preferred to meet in a public place. They felt more comfortable meeting, in a library that was a block away, as opposed to, I don't live in a town that has public transportation. We started doing a much better job of reaching out to other people in the community. So my job as a central office administrator, when I was a district administrator, is we basically said, who's in our community? We have elected officials, we have business owners, we have religious officials, we have community organizations, and we all divided and conquered. And my job was to connect with all local religious organizations. And our rule was no electronic communication allowed. So we decided that you either had to knock on a door or you had to write a letter. So I, went to every meeting house, every synagogue, every chapel, every church, right? And I made these amazing, amazing connections with these brilliant religious leaders. And I said, we're serving the community together. And I would just love to know a little bit more about the work that you do. I would love to know, what seems to be working for you and the people in the community who you're working with. And then I started being able to communicate any of our community events through all of these cultural liaisons, right? We went to the senior center and we're like, hey, how do you want to be involved? And they so wanted to have opportunities to read to young students, right? Like an intergenerational kind of reading club, but they didn't have transportation, right? And so when we went out and said, how do you want to be involved? What do you feel like you need to be involved? It made such a difference because it was always us planning the camping trip. And as much as we tried and as much as we felt like we nailed it, there were some people we were excluding. And when we say families and communities, I think sometimes we forget the community part. And in the world that we live in, where we know that education funding is always a challenge, we definitely need all of our community members to recognize the value that a really excellent district brings to the community. And so we started rethinking, it's not so much us providing options, but it's working with the community to design options. And so how do we even take it further? My colleagues and I created a resource. If you have the link to the chat, in the chat, you can grab a link. But we created this family community engagement with a couple of ideas. I'm only sharing 2. There's some other ideas. One of the things that we would talk about is when I was little, there was always a hey, like maybe you can bring your parent to school day. Like when my kids were in kindergarten, it's like we're having a tea for a parent, right? And just thinking about that creates some barriers. And if we have one-on-one devices, why don't we send kids home with those devices and say, you're going to bring someone you love to school by making like a video of someone who is awesome in your world. Basketball coach, little sister, guy who owns the store down the street, pastor, right? But like, we're going to eliminate the barrier that you don't have the device, right? Translanguage it, right? Allow the people to speak in whatever is the language of their home and their heart. And then, have the kids do some translanguaging to kind of explain, in English, what is the message? Showing one of those things every day, really bringing in the community to be a part of schooling as opposed to just observe school. I used to, every year as a 7th grade teacher, I would like reach out to families and I would say, just tell me about yourself. What are you amazing at? What are 3 things you're amazing at? And I'll never forget, I had this one kid, his name was Tim. And, Tim very much was having a tough year. He faced a lot of, really significant barriers. And there were some behaviors that didn't necessarily serve him as a learner, shall I say. And I loved the kid. And we were reading an excerpt out of Old Man and the Sea. And when I asked, everybody, like, tell me some things that you're amazing at, ask the kids, what are your families amazing at? He had mentioned that his stepfather was a deep sea fisherman. I live in Boston. So, the deadliest catch kind of area of New England, everyone goes out on these lobster boats and we were going to read Old Man and the Sea. And I actually reached out to the stepfather. And I was like, hey, like, could you just like send me a video or something like that? Because I would love to do an anticipatory set for Old Man in the Sea. And I remember Tim saying that you were a deep sea fisherman. And he's like, absolutely. Right. And he sent me these videos and he sent me all these, it was amazing. And so when we started, you should have seen the kid. It was as if like Taylor Swift walked in when I was like, hey, I got some videos, and he sees his stepdad, right? And so it's not so much like, let me tell you everything I'm doing, but like, how do we do this together? And so now that you're thinking about, those are just a couple of strategies, and there's no exhaustive list because ultimately your community will co-create this list. But just simply really having all educators say, who are you connected with already? And then which families have we not connected with yet? And creating like almost a silent mentoring where you have so many staff members in your building when you talk about like paraeducators and people who are working in the office and people who are driving on the buses. And if you all come together and say, we haven't connected with these families yet, everybody can take a couple of families, do whatever it takes to reach out and find out what they need to be involved. That right there, that is the magic. That is better than any strategies that I can give you. So what aha light bulb moments are you having? What reactions are you having? I'm doing a follow-up question and answer next week to answer any like deep questions, but this is more of like just having it pop up. Like, what are you thinking? What are you wondering about family and community engagement that truly meets the needs of all families, meets the needs of the community, and goes beyond involvement and attendance and really goes to like this deep engagement with co-educating our young people. So let's just take a moment here and you can use the reaction emojis. You can have a quick chat with colleagues. Again, we have a little bit of music here and I like a good pun. So here we go. Noise, and it is Brandy Carlisle and Alicia Keys. And I will absolutely, I'll share with you a little secret about how I play videos. Are you ready? This is a really fun little secret. I'm going to back out just for a moment. This is like a little tech treat that you can do if you do any webinars. Okay. So I'm going to back out of this for a second. I am working in something called Canva, but you can also do this in PowerPoint and you can also do this in Google Slides, right? You can insert any video from YouTube in any presentation. And so you just go to YouTube and you say, I would like to insert a video. And so I put in, Alicia Keys and Brandy Carlisle, right? And it's going to show me the video that I want. Oh, it will. Don't worry. But we find the what we want, right? But here's the thing is I put in the video here. And then you can always change the transparency of a video. So the video is actually on the slide. You just can't see it because I made it invisible. And I always know that my music is on the bottom right-hand corner. So it doesn't make your slide messy, but it does provide you with an opportunity to play music. And I've tried it in PowerPoint, and I've tried it in Canva, and I've tried it in Google Drive. So if you're struggling, you can always ask the internet. But that's the little secret, because people say, how do you play music all the time? I just pick the music I want. So the way that you know what songs I play is you just go into the presentation yourself, make a copy of it, and then change the transparency. So there's a full song on the bottom of every slide that has a reflection. And it is the greatest hack for faculty meetings, for parent meetings, because it keeps your slides nice and clean. That's just a little tech tip from Katie. Okay, lesson number 3. A lot of what we do in our schools doesn't represent the lived experiences of the kids that we serve. And so when we're thinking about how do we truly meet the needs of kids, a lot of it is about specifically communications. And so our third lesson, our last lesson, is how can we be more culturally responsive in communications? Timber, you said your Canva doesn't have a YouTube option. It's a plugin. Anyone can add it for free. You just go into your plugins on the left-hand side, and then you can add an app and just add YouTube, and then you can find all the videos there. Okay, so let's talk about the barriers. Okay, there's 2 really significant barriers that impact true engagement. And this is particularly true in families and communities that have been underserved by the traditional one-size-fits-all system. And essentially, we talk about silent divide, and this is going to be really important with our multilingual families, and this idea of limited responsiveness to the needs of families, not recognizing and understanding the barriers that people face. And so when we think about the work here, let's talk about each of those things. So the silent divide is generally that communication is shared in only a single language. Now, if we share something that is digital, it can be translated. We have to make sure that our families who are going to be translating it understand that and know how to use and have the technological capability to translate. And so that also requires that personal outreach, because we really want to create this 2-way communication. It's not so much we send things out, we send things out, we send things out, but how do we welcome that voice back in, right? And so if we're only sharing things in one language, we have to make sure not only that we've eliminated the barrier for translation, but we've also eliminated the barrier, like, do people have the technology to use the translation? Do they know about the translation, right? Are the emails actually getting to the people who we're sending them to? Because goodness knows, junk mail, and spam folders sometimes end up collecting a lot of important things. What we do know is that anything in printed text creates really significant barriers. And so if you're going to send home something that is printed, it's really good practice to have a QR code that brings that printed thing to something digital so it can be translated. But again, we have to make sure that every family is aware how to use that translation, making sure there's no barriers with technologies. Again, we talked about that there's so many times that we're like, this one way, give us feedback. But like, we're not being super responsive about how is that feedback actually changing what we're doing. I, in my own community, will receive a family and community engagement survey. How engaged do you feel? Are your kids' needs being served? I don't know the results of that survey, right? I don't know how that's changed things. And so when we're thinking about this idea of, even if we're welcoming people in saying, what do you need? How do we close that feedback loop and say, like, thank you so much. This is what we're going to do differently because of you, because of your voice, because you are a cultural broker. You have brought a barrier to our attention that we're really going to work to eliminate. And then how do we send that message out into the community? And that's why having all these connections with your elected officials, with your business owners, with your religious officials, like, it really creates this beautiful network and quilt of people who are supporting our kids. Again, multiple means of posting is really important. If you only post something in the local news, some people won't read the local news, right? If you only post something in Twitter, obviously you get the gist. I'm from New England. When there is a snow day, there is the best communication of all time, right? It's on the news. It's on the radio. It's a push notification on a text. There's phone calls. There's emails. It's right. how do we make snow day magic with all the other things, right, that are really important to do? How do we make sure that we're truly communicating and connecting with all families? We have to provide lots of different options. Pam in the chat just made a really good point where, when we're sending things out, access doesn't mean comprehension. So again, I might say, well, I know, like, I sent out the email to all my families. Okay, well, sometimes it goes to junk mail. Sometimes families don't have a computer at home. They don't have Wi-Fi. They're out of minutes, right? All of those things are barriers that we can get ahead of. Just like I wouldn't say, well, I served the chicken Caesar salad. I don't understand why you're not eating it. You're like, what? Like, what? I'm vegan. What are you talking about? Or like, I'm a pescatarian, or whatever it happens to be. We have to honor and value that dietary variability and say, like, well, what actually is the barrier? And even if something is in English to an English speaker, right, you're running into those same barriers. So there's lots of layers of these barriers. Suzanne, again, a really great point. Are we coherent in our communication? I have 4 kids at 3 schools, and 3 of them have like 8 teachers apiece. Their teachers have been wonderful, wonderful. But I might, on an open house week, receive 30 emails, right? And so, like, the coherence of, like, how do we connect with families? There are some schools that create advisories, and it's the advisor who sends out all the information unless it is truly specific about a child. I want to email you and tell you that Torin was just such a love today, that there was a new student who came in and, he was a neurodiverse student and your son was amazing. Like, that can come from the teacher, but that the advisor is the person who sends out everything. So the advisor creates like a single newsletter each week of like, here's the principal's update, here's some important dates, this is what we're doing in advisory. But again, it reminds me, Suzanne, of that idea of the paradox of choice. Is that, like, if we're sending out too many things, then the barrier is there are too many things for me to pay attention to. Now, limited responsiveness. Again, it's not just sending things home in multiple languages. It's truly having kind of cultural liaisons and people who are available to interpret meetings, are available to give feedback to the schools and the teachers about different cultures. And, I love going out to different cultural organizations in the community and say, hey, we're thinking about this for a new policy. Anything here, anything that we're biased about, anything that jumps out at you, like that's not culturally responsive. Again, we have to think about this idea of limited responsiveness is generally, you can connect with us when we tell you that you can connect with us, instead of asking like, when are you available? And then how can we maybe work together to better meet your needs? And again, it's about coherence. It's about teamwork. Because I didn't have the capacity to, come in early and stay late every night, but like 4 times a year, we could say, like, how do we shift our schedule so that we can meet the needs of families who need to come in at 6 a.m. or who do need us to, watch their younger kids and help their kids with homework so that they can have a conversation, or to do it via Zoom. But I also need to make sure that I either have translation software or an interpreter so that we can actually have a 2-way conversation that is like meaningful to better meet the needs of kids. And again, Jeanette, yes, as a mama of 4 kids, it does become very, very challenging, especially when they're at 4 schools. Because like, even if you could get it really coherent in a school where generally with my twins, even though they're on different teams, they'll always make sure if there's a conference, they're back to back. But then I have kids and I only have 4. Some people have more than that. So, again, in our keynote this morning, we have spent, a little bit of time, number one, talking about like why it's so important to really think about designing something for everyone. Firm goals, flexible means. The next is recognizing that we have to go beyond simply just trying to involve parents and just have a touch point with parents to really welcoming and engaging and co-serving our kids with families. Again, we're helping people's babies live their best lives, right? We have to work together to do that, but we have to know each other better to be able to do that, right? We have to come together. It's the collective efficacy of families and of educators and of leaders. So I would love for you just to think about what's like one nugget that you got from this webinar that you can take with you? What is one thing? Maybe you want to share these slides with a colleague. Maybe you want to reach out to the local senior center and take a visit. Maybe you want to really take a 5 minutes and really look at your website and saying, what does the translation look like? Do we really have it in every language that's available? Do I know cultural liaisons who can tell me if the translation is accurate, if it's culturally responsive? Because again, there's lots of different dialects in each language. And so just think about what is one small thing that you can take with you today, and to help you realize how much power you have and how awesome you are, Tina is going to tell you that you're simply the best. So let's take a second here. Take 1 second. I'm going to start the timer. Oh my gosh, I am loving this. So many things. My mouse is being a little bit fresh here. So Tina's gonna wait a second. Let's see. Okay, I love this. The more family engagement we have, the more student engagement we have. That is so, so, so true. And I'm loving everything about it. Okay, I'm going to start this timer up here. And then let's see. Tina, come on, come to us. Okay, here we go. Slides again, absolutely. And I'm sure that there's a way to also share these in the platform. And I know that the powers that be, Barbara, we're almost done with my time here, and I'm sure that you have things that you're going to be talking about next. I'm super sad that Tina's not cooperating, but
connecting with you, hope maybe personally, because you gave us great examples of that.
Oh,
and
my pleasure.
Oh my gosh, Katie, you don't disappoint. I think because you engaged us all. I mean, I'm frantically taking notes, and I'm sitting here thinking, I just need one good point to say, Katie, that was a good point, and I just have like 4 pages of good points. So on target. Thank you so much for this idea of designing on purpose, really considering that when we design something, we are excluding or we are including, right? Mm-hmm. So that purpose beside for our designing. And you kicked us off great. And I hope that what's coming next is not a paradox of choice for folks, that people aren't looking at the menu of sessions saying, I don't know which one to choose, because we are recording all of the sessions, and like our past summits, you can go into that summit, you can hear the keynote again, you can hear sessions again, you can use those sessions and share them with your friends and family and colleagues, because that is what we want to do. We want to make this accessible for you. We want you to be able to take it and use it and run with it. And this isn't a one-time occasion. This is something that really will last. So thank you, Katie. That was absolutely fabulous. We are so glad that you brought the energy and all this, your perspectives and great information. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
It has been
an absolute pleasure. And I hope to see you again on Monday. Again, happy to answer any and all questions, happy to share tools, but really know truly that you are welcome to use these slides, share these slides, with people who aren't even in the summit. Sharing is caring, and Canva does have an absolutely fantastic automatic translation option on the slides that you can actually choose which dialect and which level of formality to translate it into to make sure that the comprehension level best meets the needs of your audience. So looking forward to seeing y'all soon. And Barbara, again, you're inviting everybody now, and I'll zip it.
I am. So if you, many of you, I think like me, if we were in person, you'd be running up, to front, wanting to talk with Katie after her presentation. So what we are doing is that we're prepared to give you that moment on Monday, this coming Monday, September 23rd at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So Dr. Novak's going to return, and that's going to be an informal session. So bring your questions, bring your ideas to share. It's not a presentation, it's a conversation. So please do that. What you'll need to do is come back to the same webpage where we have our summit. There's going to be a hyperlink there for her office hours. It's just 3 days from today. So 3 o'clock on Monday. We hope to see lots of you there. So now It's time for us to exit this main gathering room and take a break and then join one of the sessions starting at 10:30, but don't leave yet. Hang in there. I have some really important information for you. Here's how it's going to work. To join a session, go back to the Summit website, find the session you'd like to attend, and then select Join Now. And the materials for sessions like handouts and things can be found right in the session description. Now, if you want to receive contact hours for your participation today, make sure to complete the evaluation survey at the end of the last session you attend. In each session, there's going to be a moderator who's going to give you a code word for that session. Each session has its own different code word. Save the code word for each session that you attend. Write it down. And when you see it on the screen at the end of each session that you attend, take a picture, but grab that code word. And then at the end of your time here today, whether you attend one session or many, please complete that evaluation survey at the end whenever you're done, and you're not going to return to the summit for another session. At the end of that last session, the moderator is going to give you a link to the evaluation. Follow that link, complete the questionnaire. And in that evaluation for each session you attend, you're going to check the box, enter the code word provided. That way you'll get your contact hours, right? So you see this on the screen. Save the code word. Then at the end of your last session, complete the evaluation, enter in all those sessions you attended, put those code words in. All right. For example, the code word for this session is design. Write this code word down. Once again, code word is on the screen for this morning's keynote. It's design, D-E-S-I-G-N. It's not going to be shared again. Now's your chance. Save this code word. Enter it in when you complete the evaluation at the end of your final session today, and you'll receive your contact hours. Now, if you're like me, you're going to need these directions repeated. So our moderators are going to share them in each session. And then we will verify your attendance and send you a certificate within 2 weeks. Okay, now if you're going to have any technical issues today, we have help for you throughout the day. If you go to the Summit webpage, the main page, there's a button that says IT support. That button's going to open an email that's going to go to our IT staff. Please send your message and they're going to provide assistance to you. And, additionally, we have moderators in every session for immediate help. Now, remember, all the sessions are recorded. If you'd like to attend more than one session during any given hour or to leave early, check back on our YouTube channel in the coming weeks to watch and replay and share with your friends. Okay. If we were in person today, many of you would want to stop and chat in the hallway as you were getting to your next session. I know I always do that. I'm racing to that next session because I always had a great conversation in the hallway. So for this virtual summit, we've created a space for you to chat virtually with others, kind of like a hallway, in an app called Top Hat. You can join the ongoing discussions in Top Hat by selecting the discussion board button on the Summit webpage. This is optional, but we hope many of you are going to enjoy and join in to this discussion today. Finally, last thing, we invite you to join the conversation today on X, formerly known as Twitter. Add hashtag OHSummit24. All right, that's it for now. I hope you have a great summit.